Hello, very good morning to you. Welcome along to Wednesday morning's OTB AM. We're here all the way until 9:30 this morning. Great show for you. Doddie Weir is going to join us a little bit later on. We're also going to speak with Stephanie Roche about her new adventure in Italian football. She's playing with Florentina, not Fiorentina. So when we pronounce it Florentina a little bit later on, no need to tell us that we're, no need to mansplain to us that we're pronouncing it wrong. But thanks for in advance, thank you for the explanation, but you're wrong.
Well, I've already mansplained it to you this morning.
Yeah.
So that's why you don't need to mansplain it to Jerry.
Look at my hair. Look at my works, ye mighty in despair.
Paul McGinley as well, kind of in the closer to Thomas Bjorn than Padraig Harrington, I want to say. Maybe not.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. I'm trying to say, like, not exactly the sort of flowing locks that Padraig Harrington can possibly produce if he keeps this going and doesn't get a haircut for the next couple of years.
Oh, wow. That'd be amazing.
It would be. Go full regal hairstyle. And Padraig Harrington's power as a potential Ryder Cup captain just grows, really. To be honest with you, we should definitely get him on, and he can give you some sort of advice in terms of how to get that pepper going again.
It's the darkness. Hello, darkness, my old friend. But anyway, look, Padraig Harrington is obviously the main story in a lot of the newspapers today from a golf perspective. We knew it was coming for months, which is kind of why it was not as big an announcement in the end as it felt like it should have been, right?
Yeah, definitely. And there is also the idea that it's a bit away yet, that the whole idea of Padraig Harrington and him being Ryder Cup captains probably going to hit home next year once the decisions are being made and he's being asked about specific players. But he says that it's a 20-month job, which it is, and I'm sure he's already thinking about certain talents that could be on the upward and could make that team come next September.
Harrington invigorated by Whistling Straits Challenge is the headline on the front of the Sports Wednesday section of the Irish Times, and the captaincy can be a substantial earner. A nice little Bunsen burner. I'd say that's exactly what is on Harrington's mind. Harrington's rich. He doesn't need this.
Like, it's an unpaid job, but I presume there are little sweeteners. There is expenses paid, and there's good profile from it. He doesn't need it. He's there to, I guess, win a Ryder Cup as captain. The prestige of that. And as I say, it's an unpaid role, technically. So if you want to get rich quickly, I'm not sure becoming Ryder Cup captain is the best mode to do that. But it probably it's not going to hurt his bank account.
I mean, you're already rich by the time you make it there.
Well, exactly. Nobody does this job for the money. And if you did want to, if it wasn't your interest to do it for the money and the money only, you'd probably take the easy way out and avoid becoming captain for a European team away.
Like, I don't know. I mean, I think that it's an interesting angle on this whole piece, but I don't know if... I think Harrington could have had any major golf network work as often as he wanted over the next number of years. He's a brilliant pundit.
Yeah.
He's got a nasty little edge to him. He's got the standing in the game on both sides of the Atlantic, having won majors on both sides of the Atlantic, which, not that many people have actually done. And he's quite funny.
There's a chance he would make more money doing 1 week of analysis on NBC than doing 20 months of being Ryder Cup captain.
Well, they say there's a piece there. It's worth 2 million over the course of it. That's what you'll earn extra. I don't know.
Where does that come from?
I don't know.
Sponsorship deals, like did Thomas Bjorn become much more of a worldwide profile than beforehand because of his Ryder Cup captaincy? I would say it definitely enhanced his profile for sure.
Do you think the Americans, Common or Garden, Joe Soap, who plays golf in course in Carolina, is like, Thomas Bjorn, I really want to see what he has to say about who's going to win the Masters?
Well, American golf fans are weird. They do shout mashed potatoes when somebody tees off.
Exactly. They don't give a shite about what Thomas Bjorn is saying about anything.
They might give a shite about Padraig Harrington if he had to say something.
Well, I think that I think Padraig Harrington was kind of, because he went toe to toe with Tiger. He's of the era when Tiger was good, so he has a residual brand value.
Yeah, the thing is, Padraig Harrington is such a competitor that you do wonder if he'll play himself into a position where he could be in the conversation for a Ryder Cup playing wildcard in the year 2020. I know we spoke yesterday about how he's tweaked his game over the past couple of years, and I'm sure he'll be fairly competitive, or as competitive as he can be this year. And it's just kind of this matter of, do you then take a back seat and focusing on your playing game next year and the day-to-day running of being a Ryder Cup captain? It is basically watching a lot of golf, I would presume, is one of the main parts of the role. Yeah,
Rory is the other obvious part of the story, where McIlroy said he's not really committed to the European Tour anymore because he lives in America, the money's better, his life is over there. And Harrington said, look, he really likes being part of the team room. He's a playing captain effectively now. He loves the atmosphere that week, and he doesn't get it from anywhere else. And he will be part of my team.
Exactly. Rory McIlroy not being part of the European Tour anymore is not him saying, I hate Europe. But neither is being part of the Ryder Cup team and enjoying that saying, I love Europe. It's a very nebulous thing, to use the Joe Schmidt phrase, the idea of being European. And I guess it is the idea of seeing the Yanks on the other side of the course and saying, I want to beat them, or seeing those beloved American golf fans in the grandstand in Whistling Straits next year, which is like, I want to win this thing. And the camaraderie that comes with that, I think the idea of being attached to Europe and the blue and gold flag isn't necessarily what's going to get the blood rushing for any of these players.
No, but if you're the European Tour and the last thing that you had over these players was you've got to play a certain number of events, otherwise you can't play Ryder Cup, do you bend the rules for Rory?
Yes.
But then you've got to bend the rules for everybody.
Yeah.
Then that's the end of your tour.
Yeah. The European Tour should just accept that it's the PGA Tour has won this particular battle. No, like if they can get these players to come back and play as many events as possible, then they're onto something there. But that is the best they can hope for right now. The PGA Tour is a behemoth that the European Tour can't really take on at the moment. And it was almost kind of cute of Rory to try and give the Tour a bit more credit than, or kind of show it in a better light than it really deserved, I guess, in terms of the prestige of it in comparison to the PGA Tour and in particular financial prestige. Like, it just doesn't make sense really if you're in the peak of your powers to be devoting too much time to playing the European Tour when you've got all these amazing events going stateside, which is where you live, which is where you want to try and win 3 to 4 majors every year.
Yeah, but the European Tour's job is to promote the European Tour, and they own the Ryder Cup, so they can say you can't play unless you play in this. And like, a little bit of me thinks, well, that's exactly the part of the world that created your golf game, brought you through, showed you how to be a professional. A little bit of paying it forward to the next generation, a little bit of knowing where you come from. It's kind of important. It
is. Maybe Rory feels that he's already done that, and he feels that.
Grand, but then you can't play in the Ryder Cup team. These are our criteria for qualification. Like, at some point, because if he does it and everybody else does it, you're left with a European Tour events where the Italian Open doesn't have the best Italian golfers. The Scandinavian players all stop playing at the Nordic Open or the Swedish Open or whatever. It's like, what's the point of that?
Yeah, it's a fair point. I like the idea though of trying to persuade them to play beyond their home open. Like, I do think like
the criteria are you've got to maintain membership, which means a minimum of a certain number of events. We'll give you some wiggle room by including the World Golf Championship, but you've got to commit. Otherwise, you can't play Ryder Cup. And fair enough, if you don't play Ryder Cup, that's fine. We will find players who will care about the blue and yellow enough to try and beat the Yanks, and probably will beat the Yanks.
Is that really what motivates players to play in the European Tour, though? The sort of home continent element of it all. I think it's more to do with, you talk about Scandinavians not playing events in Scandinavia.
I'd say one of the main reasons they play is to play their home events, right?
Yeah, their home events, but not like, they don't get some sort of, like...
and also then to qualify for the Ryder Cup.
Yeah, it's not an incentive, but I don't think Tommy Fleetwood is turning around and saying, oh, the Irish Open is a real big one for me this weekend because it's in my beloved continent.
No.
Tommy Fleetwood's a bad example because they'll have left the European Union by then, but whatever. Like, any European player is not saying, they don't get patriotic or...
No, but I'm not saying that. So my point is very simple. The European Tour needs to protect itself and to stand as independent as it possibly can from the PGA Tour. And as a result of that, they've got to insist that you maintain membership of this tour. And to do that, you've got to play a set number of events. Otherwise, you can't play in the Ryder Cup. Right?
Well, it definitely makes sense from a European Tour point of view. The second they let that slip, then obviously you lose everybody except for their own home event, which I do think players do care about. I don't know, like, is it something that's going to come down the line? Is it a matter of fact where in 12 months' time Rory McIlroy suddenly says to us, well, I'm playing a lot more European Tour events because it's a Ryder Cup year?
Yeah, totally.
But, like, that's the way it is at the moment.
Well, unless he says, look, I'm going to pick you anyway.
Does Padraig Harrington have the ability to make that exception as a wildcard pick, potentially, that it's the automatic pick you can't get into?
Yeah, and then you're wasting one of your wildcards. But, I mean, you're obviously not wasting one of your wildcards because you want Rory McIlroy on your team. I wonder what the tension point where they say, yes, okay, where that number of tournaments is that you're going to be happy with. I don't know. So the back page of the Times Ireland edition for now is Quinn draws up scheme to save football. Save football, yeah. And we'll talk about that in a second. And then also that story from yesterday, Kelleher set for Leinster return. Cian Kelleher set to rejoin Leinster after Connacht confirmed the 24-year-old wing will leave Galway at the end of the season. So that's confirmation from Andy Friend yesterday. Also news that Jack Carty, the Connacht out half, has agreed to extend his contract to 2021. So, and then Harrington back to McIlroy. I've been involved in a number of Ryder Cups with Rory. Rory loves it. He lives it. It's such a big deal for him. He's leader in the team room now. Nothing gives him the buzz like he's getting out of a Ryder Cup on the golf course and in the team room. He will do everything he can to be involved in that.
It's kind of implicit enough.
He will be involved. I'm looking at his actions rather than words, and his actions are all about Europe. That's interesting.
Well, like when he says his actions are all about Europe, they might be pointed, and I just think that when he says that, what he means is he really cares about the Ryder Cup. Like, let's face it, if you were a golfer, what is the one event that can really get you to an emotional level that very few other ones can do? And it is the Ryder Cup. It is one of the best sporting events out there. It is one of the best television spectacles, certainly of last year. It's definitely one of the television spectacles I enjoyed watching the most was the Ryder Cup. It's just a brilliant event. And if you're lucky enough to be from a part of the world that can be on one of the teams,
you should try it.
Yeah. Like, I think that's what he means there. Well, maybe not. Maybe there is some sort of deeper meaning. You know, as Ryder Cup captain for Europe, does he now have a duty to the European Tour?
Yes, because they appoint him. He works for them. That's it. It's
kind of a hypothetical question.
Yeah, well, rhetorical.
Rhetorical question. My words aren't really working well this morning, are they?
Oh no, it's like you missed 10 minutes of brilliant words from Eoin though. He went to the 10-minute monologue.
Well, that's all it was.
Future of Kerry football and all those explosive secrets that have been silenced, repressed.
I slandered everybody.
Yeah. Luckily, the tape has been burned. So this Niall Quinn story is interesting. So you're speaking yesterday. Virgin Media had their spring launch, and Niall Quinn was doing press. He talked about Mick McCarthy. He said he thinks Darryl Murphy could probably be convinced to return to international football. That he's a big Mick type of player, and he is. And he's playing quite well at the moment, so he wouldn't be surprised if Darryl Murphy got a call. I don't know, maybe he's spoken with Mick McCarthy, who knows. But he also went on to talk about the FAI and the league and some ideas that he has about transforming the future of the League of Ireland. He also very clearly states, I'm not the answer. I don't want to be the chief executive of the FAI and change the world. But what I want to do is get the debate going, get people thinking about what other leagues are doing and ask, why are we doing it? What are the barriers to stop our league fulfilling its potential? The reality is our system is fractured. So slowly and carefully over the last while, Niall Quinn has been asking questions, pointed questions about the future of the league, how we run football, why it is that, for example, he quotes an example of a Norwegian 19-year-old being transferred for 2 million recently. And he says if that was Ireland, that transfer would have been a couple $100 grand and everybody would have shrugged their shoulders and gone, all right, well, it is what it is. But he says he's spoken with loads of people from around the world of sports marketing, and there are a number of different initiatives which might be useful to try and improve the standard of the league. One of this would be setting up proper academies, getting government funding for each of the academies so that there is an education-based, as in academic-based scheme for these footballers, as opposed to it being Mickey Mouse type things that he would have got for when he was chairman of Sunderland. The players there would all have done they would have got badges and stuff, and he's completely useless, not going to set kids up for life. But if we're sending our kids over to England, we may as well send them with a proper education so that they have junior cert / leaving cert or whatever the equivalent will be by the time these come into being. Already there's been a bit of backlash. Already they're well, I haven't seen you in any League of Ireland games. And you want to bring some foreigners in to play for Ireland. And it's okay, fair enough. Let's shout down the man with the experience and knowledge and standing in the game on the basis of a few of the smaller points that he's made, and let's dismiss the whole plan. Because that's how it works in Ireland. You come up with a big plan, but unless you've got every single thing right that makes everybody happy, your plan is no good because you haven't got the entire room with you. There's one guy down at the back farting and making noises and going, ugh, and laughing at the wrong places. And that's the person that we're going to focus our attention on.
I'm not sure if we are focusing our attention on that player. Who are the detractors this morning? I'm just reading about Niall Quinn and what he's actually had to say, and I think he's pretty open about the fact that he's not going to be in a position where he wields the power to execute this, nor does he want to be. He wants to be in a position where he can ask the question, and he says that he's confident that John Delaney will give him an audience, that he will listen to his proposals, and a lot of these proposals, as you say, make total sense. The biggest one being the academy system for the League of Ireland.
Yeah, he says that that would cost about 40 million, so 2 million for each of the 20 clubs, and that the system put in place should then reap rewards into the future for Irish football. Even the players that go away will be going away properly educated, and maybe they'll come back, maybe they won't, but at least that will benefit the national team. as they go over a little bit later. It's interesting that he's thinking about this stuff, right? That like he's the first one of that former group of internationals to come out and say, these are proper ideas that we're thinking about, and I'm willing to put my name to them and go forward, bypass the FAI initially, go straight to the government and try and win support. Now, he does say he expects the government to say, go and talk to the FAI, but at least the conversation has started.
Well, it is interesting that he's the first person to do it, but it's hardly surprising given his experience and given his experience in a multitude of different facets of football, from being a chairman, from a player, and like having kind of a full spectrum of what actually goes into modern football. And I know football's kind of moved on a decent amount since his time at Sunderland, but he's very well placed, probably better placed than most of the recent retirees in the last 20 years from Irish football to actually say stuff like this. Like as you say, the detractors will focus on things like the Brazilian footballers. He talks about like 4,000 or 5,000 Brazilian footballers that are playing football around the world that are never going to play for Brazil, that are at a very, very good level. He's encouraging them, or encouraging us, to pursue them, get them to Ireland at a young age and naturalise them so that they can play for Ireland one day.
So my understanding of this is that there's a bunch of different ways that could happen, that you could get a third party to own these players and bring them to Ireland, and then that you would nationalise them quickly so that they would spend 2-3 years in the league, and at that point they become European qualified, and so they could then transfer to other clubs around Europe in better leagues, right? Let's not dress it up, in better leagues, so that you come here, you play for 3-4 years, or there's talk about trying to accelerate the process of naturalisation for footballers. And the knock-on benefit is that the football quality improves because you've got good young footballers, and there is some transfer fee, or there is some kind of payment to the clubs for the development of these players. Not the worst idea I've ever heard.
No, and he says the end game of that is, do we really want memories like Italia 90 again? Do we really want to actually go above and beyond everything we can possibly do to try and rekindle those sort of memories? And I think most people would say yes. Now, there has been some other questions over the last couple of weeks as to whether or not everybody wants that. Like the Nathan Redmond example was a perfect example of people who might say, well, you know what, let's not go after that guy, let's give it a chance to a younger Irish person. Will the same questions be asked of this idea? There probably will be. The other really interesting thing that he said was about football as Ireland's game, really, and kind of speaking about rugby, and speaking about Neil Francis's comments that it is now Ireland's game. And he wondered if the Johnny Sexton drop goal was even watched in the likes of Ballyfermot and Crumlin, whereas football obviously captures the international or the national imagination unlike any other sport. And I think there's still truth in that.
Yeah.
Except we just haven't got the feel of that for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, football is the sport of the country, the entire country. What did you think of that piece, that part?
Niall Quinn?
Yeah.
Well, I would say that if Ireland are in a World Cup final this year, everybody's watching that. Now, to say that not everybody was watching the Johnny Sexton drop goal, like, we can get into semantics here. It was the first game of the Six Nations. Who knows if everybody was watching? Were it to be the last game of the Six Nations and it was on the line, I'm sure there was more people probably watching the England game. I don't know the television figures offhand, but I'm sure there was a part of every community in Ireland who was watching that. And it is that very, very high level of success. Now, if you compare that to football, what does football need to do to it for it to gain a similar audience? And it is probably a lower bar. It is probably, a crucial game to qualify for a World Cup. The Denmark game, for example, all eyes are on that. That being said, like, when
that first 15 minutes of the Denmark game was one of the best atmospheres I've ever been at in any sports event anywhere. And I was at Germany in the World Cup semi-final in their own country in Dortmund in their stadium, and that was an amazing atmosphere. But like, I don't know. So did they stop in Ballyfermot? Did they stop in Crumlin? Did they stop in Finglas? Did they stop in the North Wall? I don't think so. The people's game, when it goes well for our country, is football. And Niall Quinn's obviously a GAA man. His family are GAA. He played hurling for the Dubs as a minor, and I think his son is still playing Gaelic football. But I think he's right, and I think that this is a moment for football in Ireland to stop and go, well, how did it become acceptable, really, to write that rugby has become the people's game. When did that happen? How did we let this happen to football? And what was the evolutionary process that resulted in football being at such a low ebb at the moment that there's a real sense of what's going to happen with the national team at the moment? So Mick is in, Robbie Keane is in. Like, there's a bit of a sticking plaster on the national team at the moment when actually the fundamentals at grassroots level needs to be fixed. And I think that's the benefit of somebody like Niall Quinn coming out and asking these questions.
Yeah, for sure. The question is, does he get the audience that he's confident he will get? And you would assume he probably will. Like, we've criticised, everybody in the media kind of criticises John Delaney quite a bit, but you do suspect that the intent is the same of all of us. It is to see Irish football succeed as much as possible. It'll make his job a lot easier if the national team are performing well. So you can't imagine there'd be any reason for him to not listen to Niall Quinn if some of these ideas, as Niall Quinn is so confident of, might actually manifest itself in positive results in the Irish national team eventually. And I don't know, like, he talks about the national team, and I don't think he's too keen on the idea of Mick McCarthy being a temporary manager, or the whole 2-year stopgap that he is, a plaster, as you mentioned, which is another interesting point of view. You've got to hear this guy out. Like, name one other person who's come up with, I guess, grander plans, or has the experience to match those grand plans as well over the past 10, 15 years. Put them in front of John Delaney, put them in front of the FAI. Let's trash this thing out. Let's talk about it. Let's not allow this to be a kite that's flown on the back page of the newspaper, and then that's where it ends.
Yeah, so that's the other thing about going public at this. You got to follow it up. So at some point in the near future, there needs to be, he says, going to talk to the government. There should be. It seems like there's a lot of people interested in being involved, and it seems like it's interesting this coming back on the back of a story that Dermot Desmond was thinking about getting involved with Shamrock Rovers. Like, that would be great if there was a proper link up between Celtic and Rovers. Like, Celtic are signing players from France as teenagers and trying to turn them into the next stars. They're signing Virgil van Dijk. Like, Rangers are signing maybe Charlie Adam, Jermaine Defoe, and whoever else it was, Stephen Davis, that they got recently. Fair enough, Rangers, off you go. That's a sustainable business model right there. Paying massive salaries to players who are at the end of their careers. That's always worked in the past, hasn't it? No way. And so I don't know. I'd like injecting that kind of know-how into the game here would be great.
Yeah, totally. Like, when it comes to the Celtic link up with Shamrock Rovers, where we're at with Irish football now, of course, it's a positive thing. It would have been interesting to hear what Niall Quinn had to say about that. If we follow through with the Niall Quinn model here, for example, is it a different setup? Is it less of a dependence on a club like Celtic? Well,
it's not. So it would be Dermot Desmond, who also owns Celtic. So I presume he would go, you guys can coach over there, and Well,
it is a Celtic link up with Shamrock Rovers, was the story.
Well, it was that Dermot Desmond was going to invest in Shamrock Rovers.
Specifically via Celtic, I'm pretty sure. As in Celtic, if there was a promising teenager from Shamrock Rovers coming through, Celtic, I don't want to use the term first dibs here, but that's essentially what might have happened. And that all remains to be seen about whether or not this is going to go through. But you do wonder if there's still a lot more. And it's not even a question, really. Of course, there's a lot more we can be doing to be a little bit more self-sufficient in this country as a player production factory. Like, stop sending players abroad so quickly, so soon, and keeping them in-house just for a little bit longer at the very least.
A few quick comments coming in for you. Coláiste Éann and Rathfarnham, the only school ever to have 2 Ryder Cup captains, Harrington and McGinley. Wow, I didn't know that.
That's a good stat.
Pretty impressive. I mean, imagine making that school golf team now. It's like, I better be pretty good. Darren Downey says, League of Ireland is not the saviour of Irish football that fans make it out to be. We have too many clubs to make it work. 10 clubs to satisfy the rules for European qualification is enough. Yeah, I mean, look, if you were starting a league, you wouldn't probably start with the situation you have now, but are you going to tell the people who have managed to keep League of Ireland football going that you can't have a League of Ireland team? Maybe you are. Maybe they're the difficult decisions that need to be made, but that are never really going to be made.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure about that. There is some. The common idea is that you now look at rugby and see how that succeeded and just apply it to soccer when it's a very, very different model altogether. Like, people, you could suggest, why not just outside of Dublin combine everything and go into a full provincial system like they do in rugby? But it's a vastly different environment, and it's a vastly different community running soccer. And as you say, it would be a ruthless and a cold move to do that. Is it like should that idea be heard out? I wonder.
Look, everything should be on the table really, because we haven't managed to progress to a point where we're getting fair value for the players that we're selling to other teams, and the facilities haven't improved to the point where people feel comfortable bringing kids to games. So, everything needs to be on the table.
Like, what is the single most important thing Niall Quinn pointed out, or the single biggest issue he pointed out? Like, it's hardly not getting value for our money when it comes to players. Of course, that's a symptom, but I'm not sure is that the biggest issue. Like, that will follow afterwards. Or maybe it is just kind of as indicative of the attitude that we have here, that we're not getting the best of our players, or the most amount of money we can get.
What's in the rest of the papers?
The Herald goes with Quinn's calls, Save Our Soccer SOS. Former Ireland hero wants boys from Brazil to rescue Irish game. Back at the start this morning is Varsigal. Spurs win, but bosses unite against technology, while the back page of the Mirror is Scared to Death. Clough refuses to discuss details of the City superstars to protect his cup hopefuls. It would shake them. They're pretty frightening. So Nigel Clough not exactly overly confident heading into the game against Manchester City tonight. It's Burton Albion away to them at 7:45. Back page of the Sun is so far so good. Harry a happy man thanks to video ref. While the back page of the Irish Daily Mail is video star Kane, advantage Tottenham after a VAR spot kick. And Kelleher looks poised for a return to Leinster, just Cian Kelleher returning to Leinster from Connacht at the end of the season. And then a couple of the UK back pages. The Daily Telegraph goes with Cool Kane is spot on, and The Guardian also says spot on. Kane's VAR assisted penalty, the difference in KG first leg.
Gavin Woods says, lads, full house in Ballyfermot watching the drop goal, and then cry laughing emoji. So there you go, he's answering Niall Quinn's, were they watching everywhere when it came to Johnny Sexton's drop goal against France. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but I'm delighted to say, joining us on the line from Italy this morning, we've got Stephanie Roche, a footballer with Fiorentina in the Italian Serie A Women's League. Good morning to you, Stephanie, how are you getting on?
Good morning, guys, how are you? I'm good, thank you.
So you made your debut at the weekend, how'd it go?
Yeah, I did. I was delighted. I only got on the last probably 10 minutes or so it was kind of a short one, but I've been out for a long time, so getting on the pitch was obviously the goal, and I'm happy to say I've done it so far.
How long were you actually out for in the end?
It's since I played the last game, it's been about 14 months, but in between all that, obviously I was out of contract with Sunderland, and then I came over here on trial and stuff like that, so I've kind of been fit, but then not been ready to play as such, because I haven't been able to do a lot of football training with teams, if that makes sense. So I've been raring to go the last few months, and then when I got here, unfortunately, I had another little bit of a setback. So it's just been a bit kind of mentally draining. But thankfully, I feel fully fit now and sharp and ready to go.
What was the setback?
Well, obviously, anyone who's ever been injured, I think, will tell you that when you come back from a long-term injury, there's always kind of you're overcompensating on one side, and that's kind of seemed to be what I was doing according to the physio. So I ended up hurting my right ankle through kind of putting too much pressure and overloading it. So I just kind of had to take a step back, and I think that when I came here first, I kind of just went for all guns blazing, as you do at a new club, and I probably wasn't just quite ready. So I just kind of had to, as I say, take a step back and just kind of take my time to kind of get set in, and I've done that and worked hard to get back to full fitness, and I'm raring to go now, as I said.
And just in terms of confidence, obviously it's hard to, as a striker, because that's the whole point really about being a striker, is that you need to have your eye in. Like, how long do you feel like it's going to take you to get that back, or is that something that you kind of, never actually leaves you?
Yeah, I think obviously the instinct, obviously, as a striker, never really leaves you. But I think just getting back in and playing full matches is the big thing. Been doing a lot of short, small-sided games and doing well in that, and I'm thankful to say I played a friendly match last week, and I scored in that game, so it was a full 90 and 11v11, so that kind of gave me the feel for it again, and I've been impressing and training. I think the manager kind of can see what I can do now, but it was just kind of about getting my full fitness back up, and as I said, playing an actual full match, because that was something that I hadn't done for a long time. So I think in the big match I showed what I'm about, and as I said, I've impressed the manager enough for him to give me the few minutes last week, and I'm hoping to get more and more as the weeks come.
Yeah, we're just looking at a picture here. It's a selfie from the aftermath of the game. It's Juventus up next. Can you explain to us a little bit about how the league works? Most of the Serie A teams seem to have a women's team at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah, obviously the likes of Juventus and AC Milan and Roma have have put a lot more money into their women's sides, and AC Milan just got a team this year. Roma had a team, but I think it was kind of a little bit more of a semi-pro basis, but they've obviously put more money into it, and now the girls are fully professional. So it's definitely a growing league, and for us here in Florentia as well, there's a lot being put into it. And I have to say, I've been impressed since I got here. We have everything we need, and we're able to compete in the league, and the girls really have done well in the first half of the season. So it's something that I can't wait to kind of get going now, because I feel like we're competing. We're fourth in the league at the minute, behind Fiorentina, Juventus and AC Milan, and they're three top teams. So for me, I'm kind of happy that we're competing, as I say, and it's a real kind of competitive league. It's not just you go out and play the top team and you're kind of hoping not to be beaten. We're going out and we're competing, and the whole league seems to be based on that. So it's an exciting league, and it's something that I'm happy to be part of, because obviously I played in England for the last few years with Sunderland, and we've done really well. But I remember playing against the likes of Chelsea, Man City, Arsenal. They're kind of going into the game saying, Jesus, let's get through this sort of type of thing. And that's kind of the difference in England. I think there's a few teams who are very far ahead of the others, and at the minute over here, I think it's quite a level playing field.
And is there a sense that the top teams in Italy are as advanced as the top teams in England? Because obviously, as you mentioned, there's a lot of money after going to those top tier teams in the UK.
Yeah, well, I think the top teams here, for me, the games I've seen so far, I think Fiorentina are probably the best team. And they played Chelsea in the Champions League recently and lost them. I think the likes of Chelsea and Man City and Arsenal in England are probably three of the top teams in the world at the minute. So I think Juventus probably are a little bit behind them, because they're only at the coming into the top league the last few years, as I said. But I think there is a growing kind of feel that Italian football is getting better, and I think it can only kind of get better over the next few years with the more professional setup.
What's Florence like to live in?
It's nice, yeah. Obviously, it's a little change from Sunderland, but it's been nice. We're trying not to kind of overindulge on the food and stuff like that, but yeah, it's been a nice kind of change and a different scenery. But obviously, focus is fully on football, and not really I haven't really done too much touristy stuff yet, but I'm getting through it. It's
definitely much nicer than Sunderland. It's one of the most beautiful cities in the world. It's just nice to walk around, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm quite lucky as well. I live in a nice area. I live in Porto Romano, which is very close to the city, but it's also kind of far enough away that you're not kind of in amongst the whole touristy stuff, if that makes sense. So it's a nice area, and as I said, I'm happy to be able to be in a beautiful city and enjoy football. Are you there for the rest of the year? Is it the contract runs to the end of this season, or is it a longer term deal, or what is the kind of the interim, the medium term plan? Yeah, it was initially a 1 year deal. I spoke to the club since I got here, and they've told me that they would be happy to see me stay a second year. But for me personally, I just wanted to get back playing. I think I explained before to you guys that when I signed here, I kind of was at a stage where a lot of the clubs in England were already kind of signed up. I only got back playing properly the end of August, start of September, and a lot of the clubs in England were kind of filled up around the end of July. So it was an option where I kind of had to go and play somewhere professionally, and here was the best option of the few that I had. So for me personally, I just want to get back playing and enjoying my football, and then obviously I'll decide as soon as I kind of know where I'm at personally, where I'll be next year.
You were in the studio with us a few months back, Stephanie, talking to us about the complications in that injury. You mentioned there this morning 14 months of a layoff. It was a long time, and I'm sure there was some very, very tough days. If you were told that the toughest part of that layoff that you would be in this position now, would you have taken that? Would you have been happy with the situation?
Yeah, I think obviously before I came here, I had issues when I was in France. I didn't enjoy it. It was kind of a bad experience for me, and I probably would have thought after being in England that I would like to go back to England, and probably wouldn't have went foreign again after the bad experience that I did have in France. But I think when I came over here a couple of times before I decided to actually stay. I also had offers from teams in Spain, and I kind of had a couple of offers in England, but they just weren't suitable to what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be in terms of the level of playing. So I think when I came here and seeing the setup and seeing the club, because I think a lot of people probably wouldn't have heard of the club before I came here, and that was probably my biggest worry, because when I went to France it was quite similar, that kind of way. But since I've got here, as I said, it's been really professional. The coaches, actually, he used to play for AC Milan a long time ago, but he's a really professional man, and he doesn't speak a word of English, which is difficult for me because I have to have people translating all the time. But it's, as I said, training's been great, and everything that I've experienced since I got here has been very professional. So all I can do is kind of praised the club, and when I came here and seeing all that, I just wanted to sign and wanted to kind of get going.
Are you picking up a few words of Italian?
A little bit, yeah. It's obviously not quite that easy just to pick up the lingo that quickly, but my aunt actually lives in Rome and she's lived there for the last 35 years or so she's kind of been helping me out a little bit as well, which is nice.
Yeah, definitely helps. Because we were... are you a Man United fan? You seem to tweet a lot about Man United.
I am, yeah.
Yeah, so it was specifically this week we were talking about the difference in Lukaku since Solskjaer came along, and just Pat Nevin did a great bit of analysis about how it looks like he's just changed his body position. So instead of playing with his back to goal, he turns around and is now running onto the ball. It's like, a very bit of simple advice from a manager who knows what he's talking about, has seemingly transformed Lukaku in the space of a week. Now, I don't know, let's wait and see exactly how successful that is, but it must be more difficult for you if your coach is giving you stuff in Italian and you're trying to translate it through the prism of English.
Yeah, it can be, to be fair, but I think a lot of the stuff that he's kind of trying to get through to me right now is quite simple stuff. It's not, I think he knows as well that he doesn't speak great English and I don't speak Italian, so it's kind of, he's just giving me little bits of information here and there, and I think he seems to trust that I know most of the stuff that he's asking me to do, and I'm thankful I'm grateful because there's two or three of the players here who speak fluent English, so they're able to kind of translate whatever he's saying too. But as I said, I think for now it's just kind of getting the basics right and getting into the team and kind of doing what I can see needs to be done, if that makes sense. So it's kind of, there's no kind of, I suppose, little details that he's trying to get through to me just yet. It's just kind of just getting back on the pitch.
Are you keeping an eye on Manchester United yourself at the moment? What have you made of that Lukaku turnaround? And I want to put that word in inverted commas.
Yeah, I know. I think obviously I've actually been quite critical of him over the last few months as well. But I think I've always thought of Lukaku as a better player when the ball's in front of him and able to run onto it. I think obviously he scored a lot of goals for Everton, West Brom and that in the past. But I think he always seems better when he doesn't have to think about it. And I think with his back to goal, he just kind of has to think about it a little bit too much. And he seems to be doing quite well. I think the biggest criticism for Man United so far has been that they haven't played anyone, inverted commas, so it would be interesting to see how it goes against Arsenal in the FA Cup and when we start playing the bigger teams. But I'm thankful just to see Man United playing good football and seeing the players seem to be playing with a bit of confidence, and that's kind of what's been needed around the club, I think.
Yeah, that's very interesting. How important is that element of instinct when you're playing up front?
I think it's just, you mean like in terms of confidence, or?
Yeah, well, you say that Lukaku's, when he thinks about it too much, things don't tend to go too well for him.
Yeah, I just think anytime I've watched him play, I think he's a powerful player. Obviously, he's got good pace and power, and when the ball's in front of him, he kind of just uses that rather than having to think, what am I going to do here? And I think that's kind of what he probably had to do with Mourinho in charge. He was trying to hold it up and involve other players instead of just doing what comes naturally to him, if that makes sense.
Yeah. How do you describe your own game? What comes naturally to you?
I'm probably the opposite. I do like to hold the ball up a little bit and get people involved and play, and that's probably what I do better. I've usually kind of, the last few years, become more of a number 10 and dropping in and getting on the ball and trying to, I suppose, provide opportunities for everybody else as well as trying to score myself.
And is that your role at the moment for the team?
Well, I've been playing up front, yeah, thankfully. I mean, the last few years at Sunderland, I kind of was playing out of position quite a bit, and obviously I think the manager really liked me in Sunderland and trusted me to play in different positions, which I suppose is nice and it's a compliment. But for me personally, I want to play up front and I want to be in positions where I can score goals and kind of show really what I am about as a player. So I'm thankful since I've got here that I've played up front, and I've been scoring goals in training and in a few of the friendlies that we've had where I've played. So I think it's something that makes me kind of excited to play. And it's as a player, if you're playing in the positions you want to play in and you're enjoying your football, that's obviously all that matters.
Yeah, and is Italian women's football Catenaccio very defensive, or is it a bit more open?
It surprised me because obviously when you hear about Italian football, you think like tactically, defensively, they're always really sound and they kind of build on that defensive kind of mentality. But since I've got here, it's been quite open, and as I said, when we play against the big teams, I'm kind of thinking, right, in training all week, I'm like, right, we're going to start defending and working from the back and things like that and being difficult to beat. But it doesn't seem to be that way. I think every game we've gone into, we've played attacking football, we've gone for it. There's been no time in the game where I'm thinking, and there's times where I'm thinking, right, just sit in and kind of defend here, we're winning, that kind of way, but they don't, they just keep going for it. And that's probably what I'm enjoying about it, because it's all guns blazing and everybody's kind of having a go, and it's very competitive, and it's just enjoyable to play in and enjoyable to watch.
Do you think about the footballing IQ that you're building up at the moment? Like, obviously you were doing a lot of punditry during the World Cup in the summer. You played in numerous different countries under different managers. The idea of actually playing under a manager who speaks a different language is another challenge as well, that you've built up this wealth of experience that even after your playing days could be very, very useful in a potential coaching role, for example.
Yeah, it's something that I've always considered. Before I went away to play professionally, I actually was doing an internship with the FAI, where I was working with kids in schools and clubs and stuff like that. So it's definitely something that I see as future potential. Obviously, with being away, it's been difficult to kind of do the likes of the UEFA B. It was on recently there. I was asked to do it, but unfortunately, I couldn't give up the time to kind of. I just literally signed here, and it was just happening in the next few weeks. So I kind of had to tell the FAI that I wouldn't be able to do it, but definitely I want to try and do it in the next few years. So hopefully I'll be able to pick up the rest of my coaching badges, and it could be an option when I stop playing. You're
at Juventus on Saturday afternoon. When did the team get named for that? When do you find out if you've made the cut?
Well, I'll be in the squad definitely. I'm thinking it'd probably be a bit too soon to start. As I said, I've just kind of come back in and been trying to put myself in there. I have done really well in training, so I'm not saying I'll be surprised if I start, but I think from the last game, obviously only getting on for the last 10 minutes, I'll be hoping just to build and get more minutes under my belt and be patient, obviously, and hopefully I can get more time and get on and just prove what I can do, because I've always liked playing against the big teams. I think in England, whenever we played against the big teams, I always played really well. So I'm just hoping that I get enough time to get on and show what I can do.
Well, listen, best of luck. Congratulations again back in the field, and enjoy that Florentine life. It's pretty amazing.
Thanks very much, guys. Thanks for having me.
Stephanie Roche there, live from Florence this morning, talking about the Serie A. So Juventus are top of the table on 31 points. Milan have 30. Fiorentina have 28. Roma have 20. And then Florentina have 20, which isn't bad for a team that's come up 3 successive seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a mad transfer, really, isn't it? It's fantastic to actually have that ability to come back from a transfer and look elsewhere and have as dramatic a move as it is over to a country where you're playing under a manager who doesn't speak English. The thing, though, is that you often wonder if in a situation like she was in at Sunderland, she might look back on that and think to herself, well, that was a blessing in disguise. I got this great opportunity to go to Italy that if Sunderland had stayed going the way they were, I'd still be there, obviously, and I'm sure still very successful, and it would still be going pretty well. But you never know what the opportunity might have been had it not gone south.
Yeah, I would find it hard to live in Florence and not just eat pizza every day, because the food is amazing.
I'm sure there's plenty of opportunity to do that anyway.
But you've got to train.
You got to, well, like separate after the season. It's like, oh yeah, sorry, I'm not coming home to Ireland on the off season. I'm just going to stay here.
Florence is pretty nice. Right, so let's move on. Paul McGinley was on the show last night talking about Padraig Harrington's captaincy of the Ryder Cup. McGinley's obviously also hosting this year's Irish Open, and he talked about whether Rory McIlroy is likely to take part in this summer's tournament in Lahinch. Yeah, some issues with the sound on that, but rest assured that that clip is available for your perusal on all of our social media channels. Darren, good morning to you.
Good morning, Jer.
How you doing?
Not too bad, yourself?
See the way I distracted attention there while you were just checking your mic?
Thank you very much.
Like an old pro.
Or actually put the attention on me.
Sorry, I thought you were done.
Yeah, I am done. You can hear me though, that's a start.
We can, yeah.
That's a good start.
Yeah, we're doing well.
The people in Radio Land can hear me. We'll get into it. Tottenham have the advantage after the first leg of the League Cup semi-final. Spurs grabbed a 1-0 win over Chelsea at Wembley last night. Harry Kane's first half penalty secured victory for Mauricio Pochettino's side. The call was contentious. The penalty was awarded by the VAR official Chris Kavanagh. The spot kick was given when the Spurs striker was taken down by the Chelsea goalkeeper, but there were shouts for an offside. The referee Michael Oliver checked the decision with VAR to determine whether Kane had been onside when he received the ball. We can have a look at that angle there.
Straight lines across.
So that's what the official saw. That's what the official ruled on. But the VAR replays appeared to show Kane being levelled with Cesar Azpilicueta. Chelsea produced footage of their own. I'm going to show you that as well. From their own in-house video analysis, which appeared to show Kane was in an offside position.
I mean, it does look like he's offside there, right? That's like he's leaning offside, right?
And that's where Chelsea's footage comes from. So they have a different vantage point than the TV cameras.
How did Chelsea have different vantage point at Spurs? This isn't a game that was like that's Wembley, right?
That is Wembley, but the TV cameras are set. They're stationary positions that are in the same place for every game. So the video analysis have to find their own spots.
So Chelsea walked up to the gantry, put this camera down, and they've got better access.
I presume this is a separate gantry.
At Wembley. It's not like this is like, a game at Aldershot in the third round of the FA Cup. This is insane.
I would say that neither angle does this justice.
He's definitely offside. Part of his body is behind the last defender. That's offside, right?
Correct.
That's the definition.
From that angle.
I would
Ball
love,
hasn't been kicked yet.
I would love to see it from the actual the assistant referee's position. I would love to just have that angle, because I'm with you. As soon as I saw that, I thought, well, Harry Kane is offside.
You can see it from the assistant referee.
Exactly.
He's there in the bottom right-hand corner.
And the thing is, the assistant referee can't see the Chelsea defender because Harry Kane's in his way, which he's definitely offside. I mean, the point about this is that they don't have enough cameras, right?
But that's what I mean. A camera over the head of the assistant referee is what I mean. We're clearly to the left of the assistant referee. We're not seeing the actual line. And the same with the Sky Sport or the VAR camera. We're not seeing the actual line. You have to trust that the VAR line has a more intuitive take on things than the naked eye. So, while this morning when I looked at that, I'm like, he's definitely offside. I'm doubting myself, and I'm not sure. This is quite unusual, though, right? I mean, whenever they show a replay of an offside in a Premier League game, there tends to be almost spot-on angle, as in this is exactly where the defensive line is, and that is the only place where you can do it. That is why the assistant referee follows the defensive line all the time, because he puts himself into a position. That camera is not in line with the defence.
Game's on Sky, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
The vantage point is a big issue here, in that, yes, when you see the graphics on the screen, it's pretty easy to tell, the line there, I can see the defender, I can see the attacker, I can make my own mind up.
Isn't it mad that Chelsea might have a better angle than all of the TV cameras in the stadium? Isn't that mad?
I don't think they have a better angle, I think they have a different angle.
Well, it appears to be better in this case.
For this particular thing, for spotting the offside, it's better. For looking at the shape of the team, but to actually broadcast a match for the viewing pleasure of the public, that's the difference. I think Chelsea's angle is good for them to do their analysis and find out how their players are doing in terms of shape work.
Yeah.
But from an actual TV, I don't think they have a better TV perspective.
Fair enough, but from a VAR perspective, they seem to have, in this instance, a better grasp of, this is a better picture. My point here is that there aren't enough cameras, right? So, to draw an analogy, the NFL have this all 22 cameras thing where every ground has to have the same amount of cameras, right? And it's 22. But then, I didn't know this, I only found this out yesterday, in the playoffs, they have more cameras. And then, for the National Championship final game, the Alabama-Clemson game on Monday at Levi Stadium, it's something like 300 cameras extra. There was a bunch of extra cameras that they bring in.
300.
To make sure, I think 200 is the number. To make sure that every single thing is like those, have you seen that picture of the Chinese megalopolis, which is 6 billion pixels, so you can kind of...
Oh, zoom in on the streets.
Yeah, just to kind of see what clothes people are wearing. That level of detail is possible now because of technology, and they just ramp it up for certain games in the States. And so in the playoffs, there will be more angles than there were in the regular season. If VAR is coming in, can't be getting decisions like this wrong and then saying, we got it right.
Yeah, well, sorry to
but
say.
But they did get it right. From their angle, from what they worked off, from their camera angle and their computer, it was right.
Yeah, except it was wrong.
Are we sure that that's the only angle they worked off? Did they come out and say that afterwards, is the thing?
Well, it quickly went from penalty decision to checking the offside. So I thought they would have spent a bit longer checking the offside, but it seemed that straight away he knew the offside was correct and he went straight to checking the penalty. So it didn't seem like they laboured for a very long time on whether or not it was offside, was whether or not, certainly from the caption that came up on the screen, it was checking penalty, VAR.
Because my sense of things was that they're seeing a lot more than we're seeing on television.
Yeah, you would imagine so. You would hope so.
Well, I wouldn't actually. I would hope that they show to the public and the people in the stadium what they're seeing, so that it's completely transparent. That's the benefit of it, and that's what happens in the NFL. And that's what happens in rugby. We get to see what they see, and that's why it works.
Would we benefit from having a camera that kind of rolls behind the linesman? I know obviously won't remove human error, but is on a track and just goes up and down, sees what the linesman sees.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure there usually is one.
I think that you should be able to map. You should literally be able to map every square centimetre of the pitch and know pixelated ball here, man here,
Like
other
the goal
man there.
decision system. And know straight away whether the ball is crossed the line or not.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, I'm pretty sure that they usually have that at matches. This is one of the more unusual ones that there just isn't one behind the linesman. And like you say that we do get the vantage point of the assistant referee here. I disagree. I would love to just be whatever it is, 10, 15 feet to the right here, and actually see is the head of Harry Kane and the shoulder of Harry Kane beyond Cesar Azpilicueta.
So you think
because
that-
I'm not 80% sure you're right.
You think that Cesar Azpilicueta is far away?
Like, I mean,
have you spoken to him about
the idea that you can say it's 100% accurate from here.
didn't get it.
You didn't get it.
No, I get what
Have
you're
you
trying
been
to
in
say,
touch
but
with
I'm
him?
trying to make
Has
a
he
serious
given you
point here,
any-
for God's sake.
No, but my point is exactly the same, that there's a perspective difference.
Can we see the one they ruled on? The actual footage that the VAR person saw and then made the decision of, because that has more
No.
than the one line that Chelsea went with.
We can't at the moment. There are
Can't at the moment.
No, few little technical issues in the background there, so
Bit like VAR.
yeah.
Finding its feet. Will we hear from both managers? We'll hear from Mauricio Pochettino in a moment. First, Mauricio Sarri.
I am not happy with that system. It's a system that we need still to be agree in the way that we are going to use it. Of course that maybe people say this guy is crazy, but I telling you when I get the benefit.
In the Premier League, there isn't, and in Carabao Cup, there is the system. It's very strange, and very strange for us, for the players, and I think also for the referees.
Watching the World Cup, watching another league like La Liga, that no one is happy from the day one that they start to use. To get the benefit is, of course, it's nice, but I'm not happy to win the game like this.
The referees are not ready to use in the right way this system. Kane was offside, clearly offside. I think that is more important that the lineman stopped the run. He didn't fall off the ball.
It's mad that there's such a divergence of opinion here, because in a lot of the match reports this morning, it's like, well, VAR got it spot on. Might be a bit of a delay, and then Maurizio Sarri and...
Well, it did get a spot on until it emerged that Chelsea had better camera placement than the rest of the world of football.
And
Yeah, but
it proves my
they
point
do-
exactly,
they
that
do
camera
do-
placement is important.
Yeah, they do different things though. The Chelsea one is to analyse the performance. The VAR is a custom-built system designed to spot whether or not someone's offside. So you are going to trust one lad with his camera and a straight line, which in a split-second screenshot appears to show what Chelsea wanted to show, over the multi-million euro goal decision system, which is literally designed and fabricated to make sure it gets those calls right, over some lad with his camera and a straight line.
Yeah, I mean, like, do you believe the moon landing was real?
Well, do you believe that the shadow in the Liverpool ball was real, is the real question here. This is this week's version of Liverpool shadow. Conspiracy theories in football are just reigning supreme at the moment.
That ball looked over the line. The Liverpool ball did look over the line.
It did, but it wasn't.
I mean,
And the shadow was, like, if
I
you're...
don't really trust that technology just yet. It's pretty new.
You know, right, so you're a proper conspiracy theorist when it comes to goal line technology.
Just no, I just don't think that, like, it has. I don't think they've spent enough money. I think they've only used a small number of companies. There hasn't been a proper competitive process where it's like, oh yeah, you guys are going to do this for us now, off you go. Like, I'd like to see another player in the marketplace proving that there's a slightly better way, and I'd like them to do different things. Like, whatever that I'm mistaking my laws now. Is Godwin's law the one where everybody talks about Hitler on the internet, or is that the one that the speed of computing doubles every year? One of those two, whatever that speed of computing thing is, it definitely hasn't happened in Hawkeye and VAR. It's still the same crappy graphics when Hawkeye was introduced to Wimbledon 10 years ago.
I wonder if there is an element of, okay, so say with Wimbledon, it's very clear, ball touches line, ball is in. Is the whole, all of the ball crossing all of the line, or I don't want to say it's grey area, because we know if a scoring part of the player is beyond the line, then you're offside. But there is an element of grey about that as well. That do you go full NFL style on it, and it's like the ball has touched some of the plane when it comes to the touchdown area. That kind of removes a little bit of the guesswork.
Well, or like...
I know on Sunday night you had an absolute disaster.
Is the ball largely over the line or not?
Like even them with their billions of dollars of investment haven't been able to clean that up, and are actually in probably a worse place when it comes to grey areas. But then again, it is a more complicated sport. Maybe there is kind of a rewriting of the laws in terms of ball being fully over the line, or men being in offside positions, that could help clarify this. Like, does all of Harry Kane have to be beyond all of Cesar Azpilicueta?
No, and the scoring part I think is fair enough, because like that's clear. His head and shoulders and his arm, like he's going to score any of these things. Or like, I mean, why?
Because we can't see the actual line. We're coming at it from a different vantage point.
That's the crucial point. We'll go back up the rabbit hole now, and Man City and Burton meet for the first time in a competitive game later. The sides contest the first leg of the League Cup semi-final. Republic of Ireland midfielder Stephen Quinn must overcome a late fitness test to take on City. The Dubliner is struggling with a tight groin. He played just 13 minutes of their win over Rochdale on Saturday. City have a virtually fully fit squad to choose from. Benjamin Mendy, their only absentee. He should return in 2 or 3 weeks. Fabian Delph is back after a suspension. The Everton chief executive, Denise Barrett-Baxendale, has set the Toffees a target of winning the Premier League in the next decade. Barrett-Baxendale was appointed just 8 months ago. Her second day in charge, she sacked Sam Allardyce and the director of football, Steve Walsh. She's since gone on to conduct an extensive review of how the club operates and move to bring about significant changes in the structure of the club at all levels. The CEO yesterday revealed her vision for the future of the club, which includes a new €500 million stadium development. Well, golf, Padraig Harrington says there is no doubt that Rory McIlroy will be in Europe's team for the next Ryder Cup. Harrington was confirmed as captain yesterday. He's become the third Irish golfer to hold the role since 2014, following in the footsteps of Paul McGinley and Darren Clarke. An impressive achievement in itself, considering we didn't have an Irish captain of the Ryder Cup team between 1927 and 2014, and now we've had 3 out of 4. One of his first tasks will be to convince the world that Rory McIlroy is committed to the cause.
When it comes to the Ryder Cup, I've seen him in the team room, and nothing gives, like, Rory gives so much in that team room. He loves it. He's very passionate about the Ryder Cup. He'll never miss out on a Ryder Cup. He like, just see his interaction in the team room, his actions on the golf course. Nothing gives him a buzz like the Ryder Cup. The team element. He loves the team element, and a lot of the European players, they really do crave that team bonding and what goes on in the team room. And Rory's top of the list. He loves being like, as he has moved into now, like an unofficial playing captain in that team room. He is a leader in there, and he's not going to get that anywhere else. So he will make every effort to be in my Ryder Cup team, and I'm sure he will be there.
Now, the Mayo Mutineers are unlikely to return to the panel for 2019. Ladies football manager Peter Leahy is planning for the new season without the players who left the panel last summer. 8 from county champions Carnacon, as well as 4 other players and 2 mentors, walked out on the eve of the All-Ireland Championship clash with Cavan in June, citing player welfare issues. Players from the club will not form part of Leahy's inter-county panel in 2019 as he starts his preparation for the Little National League, which begins against Tipperary next month. He's told RTE none of the girls who left are back in or have requested to come back. Everyone who has wanted to play for Mayo and are good enough and can give the commitment have been with us in pre-season. It's a new time for Mayo ladies, and we will need some time to develop. We started with 50 players from 15 different clubs, and we will cut the panel to 35 in the coming weeks. It's a new time for Mayo ladies, and we need some time. That is your sports news. Keep up to date with all the latest on offtheball.com.
Good man, Darren, thanks for that. So we want to talk about Matt Doherty, who is apparently the subject of some interest from Spurs. Just yesterday it emerged that he doesn't have an agent, but he might sign with George Mendes, who obviously, is the figure running all of the transfers at Wolves and has been for the last period of time. So we're like, okay, that's a good idea. And then today, it's almost as if he had an agent. Lo and behold, here comes Spurs.
Well, let's not forget the real reason why George Mendes is linked up with Matt Doherty, because of course George Mendes runs Irish company Gestafoot. Of course, they're based in Dublin, and so Irish company signs Irish footballer.
Give me the pronunciation again.
Gestafoot? I don't know.
Gestafoot?
Let's go with that.
Yeah.
That's
Well, you've been to Lisbon.
Yeah.
Give me the Lisbon.
You've been to half a Benfica game.
Lisboa. Pronunciation, go on.
Gestafoot. It's like if you're not sure of something, just go, how would an Irish person pronounce this? And then you have at least a defence of your nationality.
Yeah.
At least it's worse than trying to pronounce things like you suspect the locals do and getting it massively wrong.
Joey Barton with a French accent.
Exactly. I'm happy with Gestafoot right now.
I don't know. I mean, putting a French accent on for your French oral was like absolutely important. It was one of those skill sets that you learn early in life. You're going to get better marks if you put on a French accent.
Well, I think we all tended to do that anyway because we were listening to French voices. I wonder how French people speak in English in French accents.
There were definitely some people in your French class who were refuseniks, who would 100% je m'appelle, who would do that kind of stuff and then would never, like under pain of death, would they do any kind of French accent in the class. And I remember being outside the orals and one of the refuseniks in chief had this beautiful, fluent French accent. I was like, you've been putting on that crappy Irish accent in class for fear of embarrassing yourself in front of... Man, Irish society was a bit fucked up.
Yeah, he roped up to you all there, I think.
Yeah.
But I never worked on the other side for the Irish language. No one went full Connemara for the Irish language oral.
Well, we had...
Speak for yourself, for your Dublin accent.
Yeah. We had...
Báúil my yenams dova agus mumbro top. Do you remember that one?
No.
Yeah, start of the text, the layer that you had to read or something. Yeah, Mumbro Top was a classic. But
yenams dova.
yeah, anyway, guess the foot. Unfortunately, Portuguese is not a common language in Irish Leaving Cert, so I don't know if it's guess the foot or not, but I'm going to go with this. And their potential new client in Matt Doherty is being linked with Wolves. So apparently...
No, with Spurs.
With Spurs. Jesus, he plays for Wolves. He's been linked with Spurs, which I find an interesting move from a Tottenham Hotspur perspective as to why they actually need another full-back. So fair dues to everybody involved in this for actually bringing this to the forefront. So he's on 20 grand a week at Molineux at the moment. To keep Matt Doherty, you probably got to double his money at the very least.
Yeah, well, no. This is my one chance to get a big deal. I want 70 grand a week. Look at all those crap players who've been on 70 or 80 grand a week at crap clubs. I'm Matt Doherty. I'm going to be amazing for the next 4 years.
Yeah, well, I meant double his money at least.
Yeah. But how do you get to he's got to sign for, Spurs is not a good move in terms of getting paid. I mean, obviously, well, maybe Spurs paying Matt Doherty 60 grand a week. Are they not still paying 20 grand a week to Harry Kane?
Well, Mauricio Pochettino has been out this week saying if we want to win trophies, we need to change the way we think about football and the way we think about how we actually spend our money. And maybe Matt Doherty has timed this perfectly, that he'll join a Tottenham Hotspur club that have just changed their entire outlook on the world, that they've decided they want to keep their superstars and they want to pay them as much money as is necessary. To be fair, with Harry Kane, how much money is actually necessary to give him what he's worth in the modern scale of things? It's probably 250 grand a week.
Yeah, but I'd say with Harry Kane, they can look at Harry and say, look at all the money you get from playing in London for Spurs. This is something that kind of probably hasn't been that big a deal in English football up to this point because there weren't that many great English players playing at the London clubs beyond Lampard and Terry for the last decade. You're a very important player in the biggest market in world sport. You could be big in New York, you could be big in LA, you can be big in London. The ability to generate cash, bucket loads of cash from appearing on billboards, doing TV ads, is bigger there than it is anywhere else. Bigger than it will be at Barcelona, unless you reach Messi levels. If you're Spurs, you're saying, look, this is a mutually beneficial thing here. By not riding us, Harry, you allow us to pay a lower amount to everybody else, which lets us get more good players in. So the team benefits, we get better and stronger, and you get to make loads of money.
Matt Doherty might be one of those players that they might be promising to Harry Kane. The thing is...
Matt Doherty getting in the team at the moment?
No. Does he get in ahead of Kieran Trippier? No. After a period of time, maybe he might be in consideration, but
There was this thing with Pochettino a couple of seasons back where he would switch his fullbacks every game.
Yeah.
Because he expects them to do 16 kilometres. So it's run, take a week off, run, take a week off. So maybe that's what he wants.
Yeah, that was the Kyle Walker season in his last year. So they had Walker and Trippier on the right, and they had Rose and Ben Davis on the left.
Yeah.
So now they've got Trippier, Serge Aurier, Kyle Walker-Peters. Mauricio Pochettino loves Kyle Walker-Peters and sees him as this pet project. Gave him that big hug after he got destroyed by Ousmane Dembele and has played very, very well since then. I think he sees him as the next right back should Kieran Trippier go off a cliff form-wise.
So what's the point of this? It's just an agent. It's George Mendes working against himself. I mean, that is a brilliant piece of agentry. Look what I'll do here. I'll get you a link with Spurs, but you're what?
The 2019 version of a link to a club is the verb monitor. And Spurs are currently monitoring the situation, says the Herald this morning. Now, the thing is, Matt Doherty hasn't actually signed up to George Mendes just yet, but he is leaning towards saying yes, according to this article. The thing is, this time next year, you'll be surprised if Matt Doherty's still on 20 grand a week. He'll probably double his money and stay at Wolves, or he'll go on to a bigger club. If you picked any of the big clubs to link Matt Doherty to, I'm not sure would Spurs be anywhere near the sort of top of the list, given the options they have in that position. But Matt Doherty, he's had such a good year that if he was in that squad, he probably would push to being in the argument for a starting place. But it's one hell of a battle to get into that position. So I'm not sure about this.
It's not the right move for his career.
I think it'll be... Of course it is. Like, if there was a move on the table for him to go to Tottenham Hotspur, of course you say yes.
4-year deal, 60 grand a week, that's
yeah.
so much.
And like, we've heard Matt Doherty speak quite a lot this season. He's not exactly the retiring type. He'd be up for a battle. He'd be up for a fight for a position.
And if he makes it, imagine if you make it.
Well, that's the thing. And
2 years into that 4-year deal, they renegotiate and you're getting maybe 100 grand a week.
Like, we were speaking about this 24 hours ago about when does Matt Doherty get to that position that Seamus Coleman was in 2-3 years ago, where the links to the likes of Manchester United were very genuine, where you're talking about genuinely one of the best fullbacks in the league. Does he need to back this up next year to get to that position? He probably does, and probably have an even better season.
Or take the move now. Take the move. Bump your money. Back yourself, and if it goes tits up, who cares? You're rich.
Yeah, true, but I see, again, just to try and downplay the story a little bit, can you see Spurs going for Matt Doherty, not due to a lack of quality, just because Spurs are so careful with negotiations? They perhaps want a second Premier League season for Matt Doherty to prove himself that he can back this form up, and then say that they've got their money in the right place when it comes to wages, when it comes to the expected transfer fee, because like his contract at Molyneux doesn't expire until 2021, so there's probably going to be a sizable enough transfer fee, granted it's only 2 years away at this point. But like, there's a bit of negotiations to be done there from a Daniel Levy point of view, and he's a tough nut to crack as a negotiator, as we all know, for a fourth right back.
Yeah, so maybe they're planning on selling one of them.
Not fourth choice, but as a fourth.
Maybe they're planning on selling one of them, and they also realise that like the squad is paper thin, that if they do want to compete next year in the Champions League in the new stadium, that you need depth, and he's going to play 24, 25 games, which we were looking at the stats for Dembele. He played 26 league games last year. Yeah,
he played mostly in the Champions League, and I'm a big fan of Moussa Dembele. A lot of people don't rate him, but I thought he was brilliant last year for Spurs. He looks like he's going to go for 10 million quid to China.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a story that we were supposed to talk about, why Stockdale is crucial to Ireland's World Cup dream. You've got the bits in green there if you want to have a look at them. We are utterly reliant on Jacob Stockdale when it comes to scoring tries.
Yeah, it seems that way. So Kieran Kennedy today writing in the Times Ireland edition just about Ireland's try scorers in the year 2018, which, I mean, is it important that we start talking about things like this just to try and downplay the hopes a little bit when it comes to this year? Because I'm not sure if you've got the Irish Times handy, but if you do, whenever you find the Irish Times, I read out the headline on Gordon Darcy's column. It's right there, actually.
Problems will come, but the Irish system looks strong enough to survive almost anything, even nuclear winter. I added nuclear winter bit myself.
To be fair, like, Gordon Darcy doesn't get to the point that they can survive almost anything until the very last sentence in his article, so I'm not sure is he actually pushing that line too much. But anyway, in this article here in the Times, across the Six Nations last year, Ireland had 11 different try scorers. Rory Best, Earls and Henshaw scored their only tries of the season against Italy. But despite New Zealand's, I don't want to call it their poor form in November, but certainly despite the fact that a lot of us think that we're in a much better position than New Zealand, they had a far more healthy spread of contributors when it comes to tries in the Rugby Championship. They had 18 different try scorers, so it's 18 try scorers for New Zealand, 11 for Ireland. And then you get to the point that we're very, very reliant on Stockdale, that we don't have a reliable test level finisher in the backs outside of Stockdale to actually do the business for us. So Stockdale in 2018 scored 8 tries. Next on the list is Andrew Conway. One of the tries came against Australia in the summer tour, and then there was a hat-trick against the United States. So immediately you're looking at Andrew Conway, and the importance of his tries are probably diminished in comparison with Jacob Stockdale. You look at the rest of Ireland's backs. You look at Bundyaki, who scored 3 tries, but they were against Italy, they were against Wales, and they were against Argentina. And then Robbie Henshaw, who's actually short of Bundyaki despite having played more international games. He's been capped 36 times. Bundyaki scored 3 tries in 12 international matches. So you're looking at Ireland's midfield doesn't have enough try scoring potential. If Jacob Stockdale were to get injured, where would Ireland's tries have come from in the year 2018? Like, you suspect they probably would have come from somewhere else, and we're not giving credit here to the idea that Joe Schmidt has created a far more dynamic pack when it comes to the likes of Tadhg Furlong is probably the name that comes to mind most quickly. And like, is it something that we should be concerned about? Is it something that if something happens to Jacob Stockdale, we talk about the incredible depth we have across the entire Ireland squad at the moment, is he the one key component that if he gets injured, are we in a spot of bother? It's mad to think that. You think obviously not, but
no, I just think that, like, so was it Italy? Was there an amazing pass by Sexton that he takes it right to the line and then swings it wide and takes out 3 people, and Stockdale is just at the end of that and touches down. The tries that he scored against England, the try that he scored against the All Blacks, I'm not sure that anybody else at the moment has the ability just to do that. But like, is that to say that anybody else couldn't from the same position have scored a try?
Well, that's the thing, and we'll never know. Like, Kennedy points to the argument here that Keith Earls, despite having arguably the season of his life last year, hasn't scored a meaningful try for Ireland since the 27-22 defeat by Scotland in September 2017. That's what he says.
But Keith Earls is a World Cup try-scoring machine.
That's true.
If you look at his stats, they're off the charts. Come the World Cup, Keith Earls is the man.
You've got the rest of the article there. Carney hasn't, if you want to complete the sentence here, Carney
hasn't scored a try for Ireland at the 2015 World Cup. Since
the 2015 World Cup, Rob Carney. So you can kind of like pick points in the Ireland backline at the moment where you're thinking to yourself, do we have enough try-scoring firepower? And realistically, once you've got a try-scoring machine in Jacob Stockdale, it doesn't really matter. Of course it doesn't. And maybe the whole game plan is around the very point that Jacob Stockdale's biggest strength is as a cold-blooded finisher. And the rest of Ireland's backline have better strengths defensively, better strengths in their all-round game, and Jacob Stockdale is just our finisher. Maybe we need to look at Jacob Stockdale as, say, Ireland Rugby's version of Harry Kane. Just put him in the team, let him get the scores, and let everybody else do the grafting.
Paul Pogba's brother has helpfully come out and lifted the lid on what exactly was wrong with Paul Pogba's time at Manchester United so far.
It's Jose Mourinho.
I mean, way to spoil the whole piece here.
No, just a guess.
I'm
just sticking my neck out here.
I mean, the headline does say Mourinho at fault, so how did you guess? So Matthias Pogba, who plays for Tours in France's 3rd division, said it was Mourinho who was the problem. It's funny this. Mourinho still wants to be the centre of attention. The problem was Mourinho, right down the line, in the locker room, outside the locker room, everything. I know my brother. You tell him, go play. The rest, he will do. From what we see of Mourinho, he wants to be the maestro, the centre of attention. Paul does not even calculate that aspect. You respect him, he'll respect you. You trust him, he will produce big performances. I mean, it's possible that Paul Pogba is one of the best players in the world who is about to embark on that period of dominance that sets him up as like somebody that we talk about for the next 20 years. It's also possible that he never fulfills his potential. Both of these things are on the cards at the moment, right?
He could not fulfil his potential and still be an outstanding football player. Like, well, what are you talking when you say embark on an amazing run of form? How high is the ceiling?
Well, it seems there's no limits to the ceiling.
Yeah. Like, what do you think? Are you thinking
number of games
Ballon d'Or winner multiple times?
Well, yeah, that's the ceiling, right? He could be the dominant footballer in the world for the next 5 years.
Immediately? Starting next season?
Starting right now.
Right.
He plays best football in every game.
So it starts from PSG, really. That's where he lays down his marker for Ballon d'Or 2019. Are we seriously talking about Paul Pogba for Ballon d'Or 2019?
Well,
or in the running? Let's just say in the running.
No, I'm not. I'm saying that he has to be if he's going to be considered a great footballer, right? That's the potential.
Because of his abilities.
Yes. And that's fair.
I would suggest that because of the different parts around him at Manchester United not being ready to embark on that run, then Paul Pogba was not ready to embark on his scaling up to the very, very top of the game.
Like, what's he missing?
I would say they're missing...
The man who managed to win the ball and give it to him. Rashford to finish.
I would say we'll know for
finish.
sure. I would say we'll have a far better idea after this Sunday what Manchester United are missing. Like over the last couple of weeks, you're saying, well, they've clearly got parts in place here for Paul Pogba to get closer to the best out of himself. You do suspect, though, that there needs to be some sort of remedial work done in the transfer window to make Manchester United a title challenger, because...
But I don't think he needs to be, like...
he does need to be a title challenger for him to be in the Ballon d'Or conversation.
Well...
He definitely
Real Madrid,
does.
every season, winning the Champions Leagues, like, you know... all those players are always in the conversation for it.
Yeah, and what do Real Madrid do every year? They challenge for La Liga, except for, they're 10 points off the lead this year. Is a Real Madrid player going to be in the conversation for Ballon d'Or come the end of the year? Well, Luka Modric is just the winner. But he had an unbelievable World Cup. He just won the Champions League.
Yeah, okay.
So, it is a trophy business here, and if you're not challenging for the league title, you've got to have a bloody good World Cup like Luka Modric did, or in a non-World Cup year, maybe win the Champions League is a good idea.
I think that they don't need to challenge for the title this year or win the Champions League. But if Pogba, if they beat PSG and Paul Pogba is man of the match in those two games, then it's clear that the expectations need to be recalibrated about what he can achieve at Manchester United. Right? And we should be recalibrating those now. If the brother's telling the truth, which you have to assume he is, right? He despised Mourinho and everything about him. And now that he's happy, we need to start going, well, you need to start delivering.
I think it's pretty evident already that Jose Mourinho was the problem when it came to Paul Pogba. I don't think we needed his brother to come out and say that. I'm sure more will come out over the next couple of months as to how deep the problem was, and was there actually a feud there that kind of bordered on hatred? Who knows? And I think we've already got that answer, that Paul Pogba is a better footballer now than he was under Jose Mourinho. I'm just not convinced that under the current set of circumstances, he can achieve the status of being one of the world's greatest footballers. Now the thing is, this summer, Manchester United...
He plays for Man United.
Manchester United are in a good place at the moment. Their fans can be very, very encouraged by this. I still think they need to go into the transfer market and add a couple of more pieces to become a title challenger, or like have a bizarre run where they win the Champions League. And maybe it's not that outlandish for them to do that.
You know, and I mean, so maybe they sign a centre back who's slightly better than the centre backs they have at the moment in this transfer window. And you would hope that they'd be able to do that. But like, I don't think that that's the restrictions on Pogba. The restrictions on Pogba are the fact that he hasn't knuckled down and he has shown that he is too easily influenced by outside influences like the manager. Like you should at this point of your career, with the experience that he has, like this is a seasoned veteran player, although he's young, the amount of games that he's played and the responsibility that he's had at both Juventus and France and now Manchester United, I don't know.
So you're saying that he could have some sort of Eden Hazard career, where he's clearly one of the most talented players in Europe, but
doesn't quite make it to the level that we think.
And
Hazard. I think Hazard was brilliant at the World Cup. Like I think Hazard is cresting to a peak.
But could Hazard play for Barcelona or Real Madrid and be a consistent starter in one of those teams?
Yeah, he could.
Well, there you go. Has he held himself back in his career? Has the fact that he down tools in Antonio Conte's last year at Chelsea not too dissimilar to the situation between Paul Pogba and Jose Mourinho? Is that a black mark against the player, or is it a black mark against the manager who held this player back from reaching their potential?
I mean, it's a little bit of a black mark against the player too.
It is. It is. I would agree with you. At the same time, I still think you got to give credit to Jose Mourinho for how poorly Manchester United performed this year, and Paul Pogba can rightfully feel aggrieved with perhaps the style that Jose Mourinho employed at Manchester United, for not allowing him to reach his full potential and for not allowing him to put himself into what you believe he should be in the company of Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, or maybe just a little bit below them, as one of the world's great players.
Yeah.
Like, he definitely has that ability, but we've seen with Eden Hazard, it's like you have that unbelievable ability.
Like, all of the stuff about Mourinho has gone, and whoever comes in next, he needs to start delivering.
I think he's showing glimpses of that already. Yeah, like you are right. You are right that it is, the onus is now on him. But the guy's got to realise that himself at this point, doesn't he? He's got to realise the opportunity that this PSG game is, and he plays in a certain position.
26th of March.
Yeah, like he plays in a certain position where he could grab Manchester United and just pull them over the line against PSG. It could be one of the great modern performances from a Manchester United player, and he's absolutely got that in his locker. The thing is, how much more does he have to do beyond that to prove to everybody he is one of the world's great midfielders? And maybe not a whole pile.
I mean, yeah, sustain it over a period of time. Show that you're interested when you're not just the centre of attention. That kind of stuff.
It's sort of important. I personally think you've got to be in the running for major silverware. I think putting down a real title challenge is important, or win the Champions League.
Spurs Man United is one of the most eagerly anticipated Premier League games that I can remember since. Well, okay, so obviously
last Thursday.
Yeah, but there haven't been big games like this where a team who are out of the title by a mile are suddenly as interesting as this Man United team are.
Yeah, it's true. I was saying to someone the other day that this Premier League title race, or this Premier League season, has really got a lot more longevity in it than any other Premier League season I can remember, perhaps even this decade, just in terms of the interest being maintained all the way through what can often be a tough period for fans in January, February, because the title race is over, or because there aren't that many interesting storylines beyond that until you get to the business end when it comes to relegation and the top four race. Whereas now you've had this Manchester United breathing of oxygen. I think when it comes to the teams that are in the title race as well, they're so good to watch that every weekend of the Premier League feels like a massive weekend. I don't feel excited about Premier League football. I've never felt excited about Premier League football as I do right now, in terms of every single weekend. Every weekend feels like a big one, and like the Manchester United against Spurs is a huge one. Like, you're right, the fact that it is United does give added weight to the fact that they are one of the more interesting non-title challenging teams around at the top of the table we've seen recently.
Spurs against Manchester United live from Wembley this weekend. Nathan and Brian Kerr on commentary duty for that one. Stephen Doyle and Kevin Kilban are at Goodison Park for Everton against Bournemouth. Let's talk golf. Let's talk a bit more about Padraig Harrington and Rory McIlroy and the peculiar dynamics of an Irish Ryder Cup captain maybe not having the best Irish golfer available to him for the Ryder Cup. Look, Nathan Murphy's on his way in. Come on in, Nathan. Yeah, you come up in front of that camera. There's a picture up there so nobody can see that. Oh, he's mysteriously appeared. How are you?
Wow, what are the chances? How are you? Pleasure to be here.
Rory's going to play in the Hinch.
Yeah, I think he will. He is leaving it up in the air in the moment. He has sort of thrown it out there that he wants to play the week before each major, which is the Scottish Open. Now, maybe he goes and he wins the Masters and the US Open and the US PGA. It's worth remembering that actually the entire schedule has changed this year. So the Open is the last of the majors rather than the US PGA being the last of the majors. It is. Listen, there's a lot of conversations in one here. Yes, the entire golfing calendar is too condensed now. Now maybe they've looked at, say, American football, and you get your 4 months, and everybody's all over it, and that's what they've looked at golf, because now you've got the Masters in April, you've got the USPGA in May, the US Open in June, and then the Open in July. And then you've got the FedEx Cup at the end in August.
So that's pulled forward as well.
And you have at the start, then you have the Players' Championship in March.
So nothing September, October, really?
Well, European Tour is going to try and come to the fore there.
Also, now we need one of those dates.
So the BMW Championship at Wentworth is going to take place in September now. So ideally, and Paul McGinley touched on this last night, like Rory has sort of set out his stall for the year. Maybe his stall will change as the year develops, because when the FedEx Cup ends, unless you're just going to go on the wheelbarrow circuit, as they call it, over in the Far East and pocket a load of cash, that's your time to play in the European Tour.
Right.
There's some decent events. You can play at Wentworth, where he's played well before. You can play at the Dubai World Championship. You can play at 2 or 3 of those tournaments where there is good money, where there will be good world ranking points. But maybe right now he just doesn't want to make that long-term commitment. Who knows what's going on in Rory's head? Everything he said last week was true.
Yeah.
It's just whether or not it was necessary to say it. You know, you don't go around telling your mate that his girlfriend isn't good looking, even if you think it. You just trying to keep it to yourself.
Well, the thing was, he said it the day after he made the initial comments. He came out, I think, he came out on the Wednesday and said, I'm not going to play many European Tour events. It just makes sense for me living in Florida. I'm like, fair enough. And then the next day he's like, yeah, the European Tour is crap as well.
Yeah, well, he'd made clear from late last year that he was going to probably give up his European Tour membership, that he wasn't going to play. You
can just let that happen. You just don't answer the phone calls. A bit of ghosting wouldn't been the worst thing to hear.
It's probably not that simple in terms of he always starts his year in Europe. So he always goes over and plays in Abu Dhabi or Dubai and starts in the Middle East. This is the first time he's ever decided to go and start on the PGA Tour. He's definitely not going to be back in Europe till he's going to play Crans-sur-Sierre, which is the Swiss Open, maybe the European Masters they might call it now, because his sponsor sponsors it, and he's going to play either the Irish or the Scottish. He hasn't confirmed one way or another.
No chance he plays both?
No, I don't think so, because it's... And this may work, I think, in the Irish Open's favour. The way the calendar has changed, again, is just so crazy. You have the Irish Open, the Scottish Open, the Open, and then you have a World Golf Championship straight away the week after.
Right.
So most players are going to want to play... That's back in America.
Right.
So most players aren't going to want to play 4 in a row. But I think that may actually play into the Irish Open's favour, that they also won't want to play 3 in a row. That they may play Irish Open, week off, Open, World Golf Championship. And they can stay in Ireland, obviously, for the whole thing, because you're going from Lahinch up to Portrush.
Oh, yeah.
But...
Seems like an accident rather than a design that's going to lead to long-term success for the Irish Open.
Yeah, the Irish Open's always going to be under pressure. Absolutely. And I would also counter that if Rory plays, the main reason he plays is because of Paul McGinley. I don't think he owes the European Tour anything. He owes them absolutely nothing. He doesn't really owe the Irish Open anything.
No, he saved it.
He saved it.
Yeah.
But you would always like to see the home players play in their home Open. But he wouldn't be the first.
No.
Justin Rose misses a lot of tournaments in Britain.
I know.
Francesco
Britain's not the same. Britain's huge. They've got loads of people.
Francesco Molinari has stepped away from the Italian Open at certain times. It happens. It's just that Rory McIlroy is the biggest
Francesco
star.
at least sends the brother, though, right?
In world golf. We'll still get GMAC. It's fine. But I think on a personal basis, because it's McGinley, he should play.
What is the situation with the Ryder Cup next year? How many European Tour events does Rory McIlroy need to play, or should he play?
So this year it doesn't matter. He can write off this year as long as he takes back his membership for next year. So you'll play the 4 majors. They change it every term.
It used to count double, right?
And the actual points, how they come together with the points tally, will be up to Harrington. McGinley touched on that last night. What Thomas Bjorn did was he stockpiled the points towards the end of the qualification period so that you had better players in form, ensuring that they were qualifying. Because
giving everybody a late chance to qualify.
Well, exactly. But what happened with Darren Clarke was that the way it worked out, a lot of players had qualified a year in advance.
Yeah.
So if you were to, say, win one of the huge tournaments this November, it could almost get you towards the finishing line for an event that's not taking place for another 11 months. So they want to avoid that.
Yeah.
The commitment is minuscule. I think it's like 4 tournaments outside of the majors. Like, it's your Irish Open,
Scottish
Open, and maybe 2 more. Play the Dubai World Championship, play in Abu Dhabi. It's tiny.
Yeah.
4 or 5 events outside of the majors. It's not a huge commitment.
So it's a spiritual thing, giving it up. Why would you say it? Just like
Well, this is. I think that's.
I didn't make it.
It's so unnecessary.
That is the most interesting part of all this. Why he felt the need.
He's just honest. That's the issue.
He is.
He just tells the truth about stuff he thinks.
And quite often, I think
in his head. It's like, I think that's the issue. What about the Olympics? I'm not sure. I don't know. Does it matter? Well, I don't know. I feel a little bit this and I feel a little bit that. And I'm like, make your mind up. Like, I don't. Do I have to?
Yeah.
Isn't that it?
Well, exactly. And sometimes I think he probably has a little bit of regret a year later that he was so honest. But it's brilliant from our point of view because he always gives you a talking point. It's the wording. The second you say a stepping stone, that the European Tour is a stepping stone, you really are putting the boot in. Remember, Keith Belly's been over to Belfast to meet McIlroy. I would imagine the conversation goes, what do you want? What do you want? And then for that to be turned around into, the European Tour is a stepping stone. Like, he's right. For the top players, for the leading 20 Europeans, it is a stepping stone. They're looking to get onto the World Tour. Shane Lowry did the exact same thing. He was looking to get onto a World Tour where you play whatever you want in America and the pick of your European Tour events. Rory, it seems, has made a definite decision that he's laying down a bit of a marker here of, no, you could easily play the required number of events to keep your card, but he's just decided, I'm going to focus fully on America, which...
It might be for competitive reasons. Like, he desperately wants to add to his major haul. Like, I
agree with all that. So, yeah, you can make that case, but the way the new season is set up, by the time we come to August, the major season is done. So then you have a full 6-7 months before the Masters starts in 2020, and his entire focus every time is rightly, if he feels that playing in America at this time of the year is the best possible preparation for winning at Augusta, he is dead right to play in America. And I would agree, the fields are generally far stronger in America at this time of the year. So he's better off basing himself there. But to just write off the rest of the year when it's unknown territory for everybody, how you feel come the end of the FedEx Cup in September. Yeah. Maybe you're flying. Like, Rory's had seasons recently where actually he comes into form July, August. Are you suddenly going to go, well, actually,
I'm off,
I'm taking 3 months off. I'll play the odd event here, the odd invitational. That'll do me. I don't know.
What do you make of his form at the moment? I'm not sure you're watching much of Hawaii last weekend, but it seems that being in contention on the Sunday and kind of fading away is the new Rory McIlroy. Now, granted, Shafala was...
He watched every
No, this used to be my favourite event of the year when I was a young man without children. I used to force myself into watching every shot in Kapalua and this week's Sony Open. It was like the basis for the season ahead. You'd learn. Yeah. Nobody else was up, so you kind of had a bit of a head start. But now reality has kicked in, and staying up till 4 a.m. to watch golf is not that advisable. Yeah. I watched the highlights of his final round. Was it now the last 6 times he's been in the final pairing on the PGA Tour he's failed to win and never really put any pressure on. He said before the round that, listen, I haven't delivered in these situations. Now's the time to go and prove it.
He keeps saying that. He keeps talking himself into it.
He does keep talking himself into it.
The pressure's all on Patrick Reed.
Everyone's going to try and read into what happens over the next 3 months for Augusta, and it's probably pointless because you look at the start of last season, he went over to the Middle East. I think he finished 2nd and 3rd in his first 2 events. Everyone felt it was all flowing perfectly, and it was all flowing perfectly until the second hole of the final round at Augusta. He has that eagle putt. and comes up short, his shoulders slump, and literally the season disintegrates from there. His entire season could well depend on what happens on the 4 days at Augusta, and we don't know what's going to happen until he gets there. I think everything else is just fine-tuning, hoping that week is the week where his putter is hot.
Yeah, I think if you're him at this point, you've got to try and do something slightly different. You've got to interrupt the pattern from what's happened since you were the best golfer in the world to now. It's like, oh, there's McIlroy. You used to be really good, didn't you?
In fairness to Rory, he does that all the time.
Interrupt the pattern.
He constantly interrupts the pattern. He constantly finds things he thinks that works and brings them into the next season, and then he realises that actually that was slightly off and I'll change this and I'll change my schedule. And sometimes he goes through this spell, as he feels this year, that my best major performances have been when I've played the week before. I think it was only a year, 18 months ago, he was saying that maybe he felt the opposite, that he liked coming into majors absolutely fresh and having a couple of weeks off beforehand. So again, does any of that really matter when you put yourself in a position to win the Masters on the final day, on the second hole, in the final group against Patrick Reed, and you don't hold the putts?
We haven't really, I think, talked enough about Harrington in all this because it was expected, because it was, I was saying earlier, it was like not a damn squib, but just like we knew this was coming from ages ago, and so there was no element of surprise to it. He'd put his hat in the ring, and at that point, you know, he's one of the big beasts of European golf, and if he says he wants the Ryder Cup captaincy, he's going to get the Ryder Cup captaincy. Fair balls to him for taking it in America, first off. And, you know, I think he needs to get a bit credit for that.
Yeah, I think he was always going to get it in America because he's probably, of that generation, by far and away the biggest profile, which is what the European Tour needs. They need someone who can go out front and centre and sell this. Like Darren Clarke had that. Probably, he was a major champion, but also because he won a World Golf Championship. He beat Tiger Woods in a World Golf Championship 15 years ago, but it was still relevant. People still remember this because Tiger was at his absolute peak. So there's not many European Tour players who have the profile of Harrington. Like Lee Westwood doesn't have the profile of Harrington in America. Maybe Sergio Garcia might be next time because, again, he has that. Poulter would have that. But I think, it was always going to be America. And Harrington said that from a long way out. He felt that if he was going to captain Europe, it would be in America. But it is a far tougher challenge. There's no question. You can remember the big European wins. Like in Medina, it was a miracle for a reason because it was so darn difficult to do it.
Yeah, well, they were so far behind as well.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. Two quick things to finish up for today. Far more interesting, says Darragh O'Toole, that Cian Kelleher is moving back to Leinster. That means Rob Kearney might be leaving, his brother might be retiring, or Ferguson McFadden might be retiring. A little bit of amateur detective work from Darragh O'Toole there ahead of the contractual situation with regards to those Leinster players being announced. I don't know if it means that I don't think you can draw cause and effect from the fact that Leinster are adding another player in terms of depth.
Well, you're just dreaming of Joey Carberry coming back to Leinster immediately. Everybody's coming home.
Well, you know, there's a well-trodden path. You lend players out to the development provinces and then you get them back.
Oof! Wow!
That actually hurts. Hell. Really hurts being described as a development province.
Well, Rob Kearney's going to be away at a World Cup. Fergus McFadden will be hoping he's away at a World Cup. There'll be pretty much that entire Leinster backline will be away at a World Cup, which hopefully rules them out till next Christmas at the start of next season. You're going to want a bit of depth.
Yeah, and you know, they haven't quite got the depth back. So Connacht are obviously disappointed that he isn't sticking around because he's found a bit of form for them. And I think Andy Friend was saying that you can't counter offer when it comes to Irish players. So a number is agreed somewhere along the way with an agent, with the player, and that's the number. Connacht can't then say, we'll give you an extra $5,000. So it's hard for Connacht when, especially if a player is from Dublin, do you want to come home and play for your home team? That's really what this is.
It is, but also you talk, obviously tongue-in-cheek, well maybe not about a development province in Munster, but there is a danger that...
100% tongue-in-cheek.
I know.
So my Twitter mentions don't explode again today.
The idea of a development province, like I see, I think it is Andy Friend. It's actually right in front of me here. Connacht won't be a development province again, says Andy Friend.
Yeah, and they're not, and they shouldn't, and they clearly don't think of themselves that way, and everything in Irish rugby needs to prevent that from being the case.
Yeah, like the idea now though is that Connacht have a coach who's clearly developing players into very, very good players, that there is always a temptation for young Leinster players to see themselves becoming a star at the RDS eventually, but at the ages of 2021 going to somewhere like Connacht and coming back like Cian Kelleher is as a better player And does that automatically make you a development province? Well, maybe not, because you're hard to set in Leinster maybe, and that's your boyhood club and that's who you want to play for. I just think that there is also the possibility at the moment as well, given the way Connacht have trended over the past couple of months, that they will be able to keep hold of a lot more of these players, because he's a bloody good coach.
But a lot of what happens over the next 5 years will probably depend on, say, what happens with Cian Kelleher when he goes back, because this is obviously a personal choice. He's taking a big risk here.
Yeah.
He knows he can stay at Connacht for the next 2 or 3 seasons, play week in, week out.
And get better.
And put himself in the mix for an Ireland squad. He can go back to Leinster and, well, I'd say there should be opportunities at the start of next season. If Ireland were to exit the World Cup early, suddenly all these players are back. Suddenly you find yourself not in a panel for Champions Cup.
Yeah.
Or you don't deliver. Obviously Leinster want him, so he feels in a good position that he's not just going there to make up the numbers. But still, you can find yourself this time next year not in the 23 for Pro 14 games. Like, that's the depth that's there. So there's a bit of a risk for him as well.
Yeah, there was a list of players who've come from Connacht to Leinster, and some of them have absolutely been sensational. So obviously Henshaw and Cronin are in that group, but Fionn Carr didn't make it when he came back. You know,
he also mentions Jamie Hagan and Nick Carney here as well. So you talk about the other players, Mike McCarthy, Sean Cronin, Robbie Henshaw, like going back to Dublin after becoming Ireland internationals.
Well, it'll be interesting to talk to some of those players about the mentality, because at Connacht, playing every week, being a key, crucial part of the squad, like, it must be a very good feeling for any player to know that your coach trusts you, that you're an integral part of, and you could probably make a mistake and you won't lose your position. Whereas you go to Leinster now, it's a very different mentality that if you don't deliver in your Pro 14 games, you're out. Like, you got to be on it every single week. And some players, that doesn't suit.
No, I can see a lot of people being annoyed about the fact that Leinster are signing players from other Irish teams. I think that when it's players who originally were in their academy, fair enough. I think the Henshaw thing probably will stick in the craw of Connacht players, Connacht fans forever.
Absolutely. As long as Bundyaki doesn't join them.
Yeah, I can't see that happening.
It's a good idea.
So the other one then was Liverpool. So we need to talk about Liverpool because, that game, the Leinster game is live this weekend on Saturday. Leinster against Toulouse is live on Off the Ball on Saturday. Ulster against Racing this Saturday evening, also live. It's an orgy of live football this weekend, live sport.
Yes.
That's exactly how it's described on the News Talk ad as well.
That's the promo. Join us for an orgy this weekend on Off the Ball.
I've stolen that line from Noel King. There was back in the
anyone has ever done such a thing.
back in the late 80s, early 90s, Shamrock Rovers announced a range of glamour friendlies, and he went, "It's an orgy of football this summer," and it's stuck with me ever since. And so anytime I get the opportunity to use it, and Noel King always pops into my head when it does.
I should mention we're also going to be down at Connacht against Sale on Saturday.
Yes.
Jenny Murphy's going to be reporting on that game for us. We've Keith Wood, Kevin McLaughlin at Leinster, Toulouse, Oisin Langan, Andy Dunn up at Ulster. So yeah, rugby Saturday, football Sunday. I'm going to be at Wembley. First big test for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Spurs, Man United.
The other interesting thing about this weekend is obviously Liverpool's collapse in form in the last 10 days.
Well, this is the thing. We see these James Milner quotes in front of us here this morning, and on the face of it, they're just not that negative. They're fairly normal, sort of, we need to take a look in the mirror. But we haven't heard this from Liverpool at any point this year. It's been all happy up until this point. He says back-to-back defeats isn't really good enough. He says, I should do better. The pitch all night was lively, a bit tricky and lively, he says, in relation to the game at Molineux. It's the same for both teams. It was my mistake for the first goal, and it cost us. It was a pretty good finish from their lad, but they didn't have many chances. We didn't either, but that's what separated the teams. My mistake, and a very good finish for the second goal. I think we didn't deserve this result because we tried to play football, said Jordan Shaqiri as well. Not really good enough is the whole phrase here from James Milner. Improvements needed. As I say, it's not earth-shattering stuff. It's I'm surprised it's barely made headlines, but it is there just an element of doubt, I wonder, creeping into these Liverpool players, Nathan?
I don't think there's a huge amount of doubt. They went toe-to-toe with the best team in the league, possibly the best team in Europe, and an inch here, an inch there, and they get a point, or they win that game. Milner's right, he has to improve. He's had a bad week, probably his worst week since he joined Liverpool. He didn't play well against Manchester City, was all over the place against Wolves in a game that you would have expected him to be the leader.
But didn't I read about how he babied the new 16-year-old through his debut? He was like standing right beside him, playing as an auxiliary centre-back. It's like, well, what's the point of that? That was what I read about James Milner, about how when he has a brilliant career, this 16-year-old will remember back to that moment that James Milner basically fluffed his performance for him.
Well, James Milner was at fault for the first goal, obviously, and I just thought it looked totally off the pace for the entire game. But you would back Milner to come back from this. Like, he is the true professional.
Yeah, I don't think that this blip of form is anything. I think they're happy to be out of the cup.
Oh, they're 100%. They're happy to be out of the cup. You look at suddenly how their entire next couple of months changes. So there's an FA Cup weekend, I'm fairly sure, ahead of one of the games against Bayern Munich in the Champions League. Suddenly you've got that weekend off to properly prepare, instead of, as is the case, they probably would have been on television on the Sunday evening at 4 o'clock and no break. Now they'll get a couple of weeks here and there where they can relax. Maybe to overthink things might be the only stressful situation. But this is the game. Brighton is the game on Saturday, that if they were to drop points, like, people talk about the pressure, and I know the former players are saying that they won't feel the pressure. Like, it's unlike any other team. It's unlike any other club what they're going to have to put up with. A draw away against Brighton, lots of teams do it. It happens. But after losing their last 2 games, suddenly this is absolute crisis.
Yeah.
Every paper you look in will be absolute crisis, when it isn't that. But I could see them ending February further ahead of Manchester City than they are now, easily. They've 5 very winnable games until they play Manchester United at Old Trafford.
I like the way you're taking it one game at a time there, Nathan.
No, I think
3 points, 3 points, 3 points, 3 points.
look, they're four clear now. I would expect them to be further ahead by the end of February.
Oh, if only we'd won that game, we would have won the league.
Well, is that not literally every analysis of Liverpool? If this had happened, that would have happened.
Yeah, pretty much.
But I think they'll be all right.
Nathan, good stuff. Thanks for that. So busy weekend ahead of live sport on Off the Ball on News Talk. Tomorrow morning on OTB AM, we're going to be bringing you our Doddie Weir interview. Killian Sheridan and Gary Ringrose will join us on the show as well. Killian Sheridan, obviously jet setting at the moment down in Auckland, is he?
Wellington.
In Wellington. Yeah, so down in Wellington playing football, having travelled across most parts of Europe as well. One of the most interesting careers in Irish football history there. Off the Ball returns tonight from 7 o'clock on the radio. Wednesday Night Rugby, the football show with Kevin Kilman and much more. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 7:45. Good luck.